Hey moms, it's Laura Ollinger. Welcome to the Positively Healthy Mom podcast. Because there's no manual for the hardest job in the world. Hello everyone, I'm Laura Ollinger and welcome to the Positively Healthy Mom. So welcome today. I'm so excited to welcome Sara Fritsch, and she is the founder of Moxie Space Organizing. So welcome, Sara.
Hi, Laura. Thank you. It's so good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So today, I love the idea of having you on because this is really a universal problem. It's really not just a mom problem, but we're going to put it in the context of moms today, which is being organized in your physical space, whether it's your home or your office, but specifically you focus on people's homes. So Sara, tell us what it's like when you enter someone's world. I know you work with all different types of clients. So give us maybe a few examples of like what you walk into, why people need you, and what you do to help them.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, like you said, it's all different types of spaces and clients and needs, but the thing that we all have in common, or they all have in common, is that they are kind of feeling maybe overwhelmed with the stuff in their home. They're feeling maybe overwhelmed with the fact that it feels like there's nowhere to put anything, or they don't know how to put things away because there's not enough space to put things away because maybe there's not a home for everything they own. Um, Sometimes the houses are in such a state where, we can't see the counters or we can't see any surface space because the clutter is spread all over the surfaces and on the floors. And then sometimes it's a situation where there's maybe a transition happening in the home where there's a new baby coming, or someone's graduating college, or the kids they've been sharing a room and now they're ready to split them up into two separate rooms. And so we do a lot of help with changing of the layout of the home, oh, this has been the guest room forever and we're trying to turn it into an office. So that was something really popular over the pandemic and since then. So it can be, I do find a lot of times it's a transition happening that triggers the need for organizing. Maybe you're getting ready to move, or there's just something different happening in the family, or it can just be a simple, need for, I'm tired of dealing with this clutter. I'm tired of not having a system. We moved in 2 years ago or 4 years ago and we never fully unpacked or set things up. And now it's like, we can't catch up. That's a comment that I hear a lot.
Yes, yes. And so that is my personal experience. That's why I'm so passionate about having you talk to the moms. So several years ago, we were needing to sell our house. Except the problem is I was living in the house with my poor kids, and there was just so much stuff going on like with the birth, that all the moms can identify all the presents that come with birthdays and holidays. Mm-hmm. And so it's like trying to get the house show ready was one kind of challenge, but like living in it day to day. But then I had y'all come in, you like cleaned up all the kids' spaces, all the toys, all the like so much. But then what was awesome about it is it made it so much easier than when it was time to move to get everything packed. But then here's the best part. When we got unpacked, then everything was already labeled. So I was in a temporary space for a little while, and then we're finally in our permanent home. And so it just like helped the entire process. Like I'm still finding things to these days that I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what the Moxie Space people did for me. And it kept us, just kind of clean and organized. And whether you have one kid or four kids, there's always just the stuff. And then the systems that come with kids, whether it's like, where do the cleats go? Where do the sports stuff go? Where does arts and crafts go? Or things like that. Yeah. So what about like, what is, so when people hire you, I love the idea of the process, that people come in, but I think there's probably the people like me who were like, well, how are they going to know what to do? Like, they don't know what my stuff is. Yeah. So what is it like to have that experience?
Yeah, that's a big question we get, and people think like, oh, you must need me to be home the whole time you're here, or involved, right? Because you don't know what my stuff is, and maybe you don't know where it should go or what to do with it. And so, yeah, that's a very common thing. And as it turns out, and I'm saying this because it was kind of a surprise to me too, as I got more into the business and into the industry, there's a lot we can do without the homeowner or client being present, or even being involved. I actually tell new clients who come to us now, I say, you can be involved as much or as little as you want. And that's true. We like to know ahead of time what to expect so we can plan for it. But, really when it comes down to it, is every home may have a different layout, but honestly, we all have the same type of stuff, you know. It doesn't matter how much of it there is or how nice the house is or whatever the case may be. Like we all wear clothes and we all have chargers for everything, and we're all just kind of dealing with the same challenges with our stuff. And especially when, now I've been in business for almost 8 years and I have a whole team. And so we've organized hundreds and hundreds, we're like 10,000 hours plus in at this point. And so I think that's helpful also, is like after getting to see every type of space there is out there and mostly every type of client, you kind of just learn, how people are using their stuff and what they're struggling with. And, but as far as what I like to always also, make sure that we're clear about is when it comes to editing or decluttering or whatever you want to call it, getting rid of stuff, we're very, very serious about not getting rid of anything without permission. And so that's how we like to know, how much does the client want to be involved? Are they going to drop in at 11:30 for 15 minutes, or are they going to be here all afternoon? So we can just prepare, so we can ask all those questions at once, or set everything aside and leave a sticky note or something like that. But yeah, in general, we all get the same stuff. We're all going through the same challenges. When a client has preferences and they say, no, I want my, if we're doing an unpack or something and they say, well, I know I want my coffee station over here and I don't care about the rest. And so, we'll make sure we address that one request, and then otherwise we're just trying to come up with the most efficient functional system that is intuitive for the user. That's our end goal.
I like how you said that we all have kind of the same stuff, because that kind of like humanizes us, and it also takes a little bit of the shame out, because I know how embarrassed. I was so embarrassed to have y'all over and see our mess. And I just have this feeling, knowing my friends, that, how like whenever you want to have friends stop by, you're like, oh, my house is a mess, let me clean up. Or, we're all embarrassed about having messy space. So I can only imagine it would be really embarrassing for people to all come in who are like the organized people and like see their stuff. So how do you kind of help your clients like get past that feeling of shame or embarrassment or humiliation, whatever it is?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And it is such a huge part of, I think, asking for help in general, right? Whether it's for organizing your house or going to the dentist. I always use that as an analogy, like when you go to the doctor or you go to the dentist, you're like, oh, sorry about my mouth. It's like, well, that's why you're here. And it's kind of a similar thing. Or you can think of like a bookkeeper, maybe, right? Sometimes it can be hard to hire a bookkeeper and let somebody see all your financials, but it's like, that's their job and that's what they do. And they're really not judging it. It's like a math problem. Quite literally for a bookkeeper. But I also like to say that for organizers, we're walking into maybe chaos or a mess or whatever it is, a disorganized space, and it's a puzzle for us to solve. We're not here to judge. I always try to remind everyone that we have it a lot in our language, in our consultation forums and things like that, just as a reminder, like, hey, we're really not here to judge. We're here because we love what we do. We love helping. We love making order. And we truly do see this as, a lot of times, it's like a puzzle. Most organizers are natural puzzlers. We love doing puzzles. We love putting things in place. It just gives us a lot of satisfaction. And so, it's so beyond that, the judging of a space or something. I mean, it's our job. And so, it's a challenge that we get to solve. And I even have some organizers who will say, hey, give me the messiest spaces. Like, the more mess, the better. I love a good challenge is really kind of what it comes down to for us. I mean, we're not like, we are humanizing the experience, and we know that, it's a very personal and intimate experience. But when it comes to something nuts or something crazy, we don't want people to feel embarrassed or shame, because that's not what we're here for. And, we just like putting things in order.
Yeah, I like that. And if they are having any still kind of apprehension or sense of judgment, you can almost flip the mindset to what you just said, which is you're kind of giving the organizers a big present. Like, here you go.
Yeah.
Because they get the satisfaction of that before and after. So it's almost like getting to see their best talents come to life, to see like how much they've been able to make that transformation. So if we're going to worry about anything, maybe that's just like the way we think of it, is like, you know what, here you go. Here's a big project.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, we love what we do. And so we're very grateful to be able to do this and get paid for it. It's a really cool thing. I think most organizers feel that way about having a job as an organizer. We feel lucky to get to do the work.
Yeah, that's really neat. And I relate as well, because a lot of clients who come to me with problems about their teenager or problems with the relationship with they're having with their teenager. And you can tell they're a little bit reluctant to share. Not all the time. Sometimes they just spill it, but sometimes they're reluctant to share because they feel like they're the only one or they're embarrassed. And I'm like, look, when you see this, kind of like what you said, when you've done this for a long time, you start to see that this is just normal human behavior, and there's patterns, and that we all experience these certain things. And so, yes, to do my job, I have to have no judgment. I'm just here to help. And it's the same type of thing where I just want to get what the client wants. And so that's when I know I'm doing my best work, is when I can accomplish their goal for them. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly that. Yeah. Well said. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Good. Okay. So for moms, I kind of feel like there's ways where we can like break it up into like ages and stages. And so you probably, I know you have talked to me about seeing like there was such a gamut of like the moms with the babies and the toddlers, and then like the kind of middle-aged kids where it's still some toys, but like starting to gravitate into the video games. Then we get into the teenagers, and then we get into the empty nesters. So can you give any examples of like what might be different or what might be the same as moms go through all those ages and stages?
Yeah. I mean, of course, the obvious is just how in the beginning, right? How quickly your kiddos are growing. I mean, those babies, they wear the outfit like 2 times, and then it's time to get rid of it because they don't fit in it anymore. And then not only that, you're not only your children are growing so fast, but if you're having children, then your clothing is also changing, your body size is changing, your needs are changing. I mean, it's so prevalent when the babies are little, when those newborns come, and so much changes, of course, but it's like it's what their needs are, what the baby's needs are, and their clothing and their changes, and then you've got your clothing that's changing and your needs are changing, but it's also changing what you own and what you have in your kitchen, let's say, right? If you're doing bottles, and then eventually they start eating solid food, and you've got bibs everywhere, and then, of course, let's not never forget the enormous toys that children get when they're really young, right? The walkers and the play mats and all those things that just take up so much space. And so I feel like, and I'm not a mother, but of course, we organize for moms all the time. And I have lots of nieces and a nephew. And so what I see, of course, is when they're youngest, it seems like that's like when the most change is happening rapidly. It feels rapid. And then, of course, as they're getting bigger, they're changing, their interests are changing, the books that they're reading are changing, their clothes are changing. I mean, it is kind of it's a constant movement. And my best piece of advice for it is to get yourself in the habit of letting things go, and just, it's almost just like go ahead and adopt the mindset that there's going to be constant shifting and shuffling with the stuff in your house when you have children, because your children are constantly changing and their needs are constantly changing. And I think we're pretty good as a whole, as a human society, of bringing stuff in. We're pretty good at that. I think what we struggle with is letting things go out. And maybe it's not even because we have a hard time letting things go, but I think it's also just because I feel like, we're at a time in life where the generations that are alive right now are kind of struggling with something that hasn't been a thing for very long, which is having too much stuff, right? Like back when 100 years ago, that was not a thing. Nobody had too much stuff. In fact, most people lacked for what they even needed or wanted, right? And so, I think our generations were never taught about the necessity of moving things out, because stuff is always moving in. But if we're not in the habit of moving things out, that's when we get to a point where we're like, I have too much stuff. And then if you're not moving houses, if you're literally not selling and moving your house very regularly, which is a great time to declutter, and that's when most people will maybe declutter if they do. But if you're not moving, you stay in the same house for even 5 years these days, that's a long time, and you can accumulate a lot of stuff. And so if you don't have that regular maintenance of letting things go, or culling through and getting rid of all the clothing that doesn't work, or those baby bottles that you don't need. And of course, then there's that whole other thing of, well, if I have another child, should I hold on to this, and where should I put it? And right, so then there's that whole piece of it. And when if we were to come in, or when we do come in and help mothers and families with this challenge and this issue, is we try to set up always simple systems that they can grow into, whether that be, several tubs, containers with lids that have, the ages on them for clothing or toys, and cycle through those, right? But it's always a process of, well, now they're ready for this size, but that means this size is too small. So are we going to get rid of it? Are we going to store it for the next baby? I often, and sorry, maybe I'm going too far into my answer here. I hope I'm still on topic. Okay, good. Good. Yeah. Well, I also like to try and just however we can help ourselves easily is the way to go. And when you could do something where you have a container and it has a lid, and that's your boundary, basically, where it's like, I can keep this much for my next kid if I'm going to have another kid, or this much maternity clothing, or whatever it is. And I'm only going to keep the best, and anything else that doesn't fit has to go. And, and it's a trigger, meaning that it triggers the next habit. So like when that thing is full, that means that you can't put anything else. That's your trigger to start letting things go out the door instead of continuing to build in, right? Like laying stuff on the top of the bin. No, it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit. You got to get in the habit of pushing it out, donating it, whatever.
Yes, I love that. And in my world, we call it if this, then that. So if this is full, then that needs to go, right? It's that habit stacking or linking of those habits. The one thing that really stood out to me in what you were saying earlier was we tend, a lot of us, not all of us, but a lot of us tend to want to hold on to things for that emotional, sentimental reason. And especially with the kids, when they're growing, we want to hold on to their younger years. And it's hard for us as moms to like see them grow up because we're so sentimental about when they were little and when they were sweet and when they smelled good and all that stuff. And when they would wear the clothes we wanted them to wear, we could choose it. And it was cute. We made it matching and it was fun, right? You can tell I'm talking about it. But I know a lot of people can identify. And so what do you do when you have a client who is really struggling with like letting anything go? Like, is there something that you all say to like help coach them through that?
Yeah. I think we have a blog actually that I think it's called like 5 questions to ask yourself when decluttering. And it's something along the lines of, there's the basic questions of which this isn't necessarily going to apply to what you're saying. You're talking about sentimental stuff. That's a whole other thing, right? It's not like, well, when's the last time you used this? If you haven't used it in a year, let it go, which I don't subscribe to any like hard and fast rule like that. I even think like within my own closet, there are things I haven't worn in a whole year, but that doesn't mean that I won't wear them again a year or two from now. Sometimes seasonality shifts or my personality shifts or whatever. So I'm not always into a hard and fast rule, but I will say that when it comes to sentimental items, I think understanding first and foremost that sentimental items do pull on our emotions. And so it is probably very different than say culling out expired food in your pantry. Right. And so and I'm just hesitating because there is no real rule, right? But what I would suggest is there's a couple ways, maybe the limiting yourself with how much you're going to keep, right? You allow yourself to keep a certain number of small baby clothes or whatever, or the toys or whatever it is, and you have a small box and you pack it away. And anything else that doesn't fit in there is probably too much. You get to decide how big that container is, right?
Okay.
Right. And another thing that I know some people do is they take photos of the thing before they let it go. So they at least have some piece of it or some memory of it. There's another interesting kind of train of thought with all of this when you're keeping sentimental items. It's like, I think the good question is like, who are you keeping it for? Yes. Are you keeping it for yourself, and probably you are, but maybe you're telling yourself that you're keeping it for your kid. Yeah. Right. And I don't think either one is right or wrong. I'm not going into that, but I'm just saying, as long as you're feeling clear and you're being honest with yourself, and maybe you're keeping it for yourself and you think that your child will want it one day, that's fine and fair. But I think that sometimes I think we all have a story where maybe a parent or a grandparent or whoever raised us, like drops off a box of stuff that was ours when we were kids. And we're like, thanks, Mom. I don't really want this. And you're just dumping it on me because you don't know what to do with it. Right. Right. And if you've had that experience, just remember that so that you don't do it to your kids. Okay, so letting go of sentimental stuff, or trying to figure out how to let it go of sentimental stuff. I will say this too. I find often that a lot of times what we're really wanting is we're wanting that memory to stay alive. And we're afraid if we let go of the thing, the memory will be gone forever. And so what can be very helpful sometimes is that if you're working with someone else, whether that be a very close friend or your partner or an organizer, right? If someone's there with you, that can help a lot, because you're getting because I've done this for myself. I had my best friend come over a couple years ago. I need help going through my closet, and I need it to be a friend. I don't want it to be one of my employees this time. I just want a girlfriend. And I went through my whole closet and I told a story about every single piece of clothing I had. And as I was doing it, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like one of my clients right now, where what's happening is I want my memories to live on, and I want to be witnessed, and I want to be seen for what I'm going through and for the things that I've done. And so that is a piece of it. And so if you can find someone that you love and trust and can just kind of hold that space with you while you try and declutter, that could be very supportive and helpful, because someone's you're not doing it on your own. It doesn't feel like you're letting it go and no one's ever going to know about it. I think that could be supportive. The last thing I'll say that I hear some people do is when they're considering letting something go, they box it up and then put it like in the garage or something, or they put it somewhere else that's out of sight, and they maybe set a calendar reminder for maybe say 6 months from now. And if 6 months from now you go back to that box and you realize you don't have as much attachment as you thought you did, or you never missed the thing that you thought for sure you were going to miss, then that's an interesting indicator of maybe you are ready to let it go. But you're kind of giving yourself the baby steps to test it out.
Right. Those are all great pieces of advice. And my favorite one is, I have a feeling some people might be afraid to have an organizer come in their house because they're afraid that the organizer would say, this has to go, this has to go, this has to go. But what you said was you decide. And so if the client has the decision-making power and the veto power to say, no, don't get rid of it, then you're to know that, like, okay, there are some things or there aren't some things. But I also liked your advice earlier about, okay, you get one box per child or per whatever, and once it's full, then that's good. That's enough stuff to hold on to so that you can, relive their baby days if you really want to, which most when it really ever happened, like you
don't have time, right?
You don't really think of that. I think we are going to do that, but then we're not, because like right now my kids are teens and tweens, and we're just living life, right? We're not running we're in the present moment, and if anything, we're only looking forward to the future, right? Because we're about to make a lot of changes in our family, and so we're not looking back a lot of times. And I think people think they will, but then they don't. And so like you're dealing with all those different emotions, totally. Houses, yes.
Oh yeah. I mean, it really is. It can be such an intimate job, and in the best way. I mean, honestly, it may sound kind of cliche or cheesy, but it's like, it's an honor that we have clients that will invite us into their home and go through this process with them. And it's not always like, an emotional process. And sometimes it's not even really about decluttering very much. It's about rearranging what's already there. But I would love to kind of just like emphasize the importance of, it is the client's decision what to keep and and what to let go of. And we're there to help guide you. And we're there to help you feel clear about what you're keeping and what you're letting go of, because we have no agenda as to how much we think you should let go of. We're never walking into a home thinking like, I'm going to have this person get rid of half of their stuff because they have too much, or, there's no goal to it. In fact, I will go as far as to say, like, I don't care what you decide you want to keep or let go of. It doesn't matter to me. What I care about is that I know that you feel good about the decisions that you're making, that I can tell that you're clear and you're ready to let go of these things. And I'm happy to help guide you and ask you different questions to help you get to the bottom of it. There's so much to be said for having somebody in the room who cares, but is also unbiased and unattached. And so they can stay, like an organizer, they can stay focused, but they have that, they have empathy and they care, but with no specific agenda other than just helping you get to your goal, whatever that is for you.
Yeah, that's very reassuring. I think, to have it be that the client is that in that control seat.
I'm going to pause my conversation with Sara Fritsch, founder of Moxie Space Professional Organizing. If you'd like to hear more, listen to my next episode. Thank you for listening to the Positively Healthy Mom podcast, because there's no manual for the hardest job in the world. Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends.